Hi everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to another episode of #EpicBookRecs. So this is the monthly series that I do here on the Epic Reads channel where I recommend a bunch of books based on a certain theme. So we've done a bunch of fun and exciting themes before, so you should definitely go check out the link in the description that leads to a playlist of all of the amazing recs I've given before. But for today's video, I thought since it is November, it is that sort of cozy, cold time of the year, it might be nice to have some cozy romances to read and curl up with. The romances in each of these books are some of my favorites, but there are also two books on here that I haven't read yet that I'm really excited for and that seem like they're going to be super adorable. You'll be getting a mix of some contemporary YA and also some YA fantasy, so I hope you will buckle down and enjoy. Alright, so the first book that I want to recommend is The Tiger at Midnight by Swati Thirdala. I absolutely love this series, but also mainly this first book because of the way that the romance develops. This fantasy is inspired by ancient Indian history and Hindu mythology, and it follows our two different main characters, so Kunal and Isha, and these two characters are some of my favorite characters of like all time. But the main plot of the book is that Kunal and Isha are from very different opposing countries that are neighboring to each other, and Kunal is a soldier for one of those countries, and Isha is actually a notorious assassin called the Viper for the other nation. And so when a unexpected murder happens in Kunal's nation, he is sent on a mission to go capture the Viper who has murdered this person. And what develops from there is a really cool cat and mouse game where each of them is sort of hunting the other one and running away from the other one, and in the midst of it all falling in love. I absolutely love the dynamic between Kunal and Isha as well, because Kunal is like a very like straight-laced soldier who is quite oblivious at times, whereas Isha is a very like smart and cunning assassin, but also just very charming and happens to charm the pants off of Kunal, which I just find so hilarious, and they're just so cute, and the way they fall in love is just so exciting. So I'm so curious to see how it's all going to end in the final installment, because this is a 3-book series and the last book recently came out. Alright, the next book that I want to recommend is one that I'm hoping to pick up very soon, and that is Xoxo by Xoxo, and this seems like it's going to be the most adorable K-pop romance. So basically this follows our main character Jennie, who is a cellist, and she is award-winning, and you know, she's known practice all of her life. But one night when she meets this mysterious boy named Jaewoo, her world is sort of turned upside down. The two of them spend a night in LA just roaming around the city and getting to know each other, two strangers who don't know anything about each other. And they have this one spectacular night just before Jaewoo is about to fly to Korea and leave the country basically forever. And so after this one night happens, Jennie is sort of determined to just leave it behind her and forget it and go back to her regular life. But when her grandmother falls ill, she and her mother end up traveling to Korea to go take care of her grandmother. And what she finds when she gets there is that Jaewoo is actually a massive K-pop star in one of the biggest boy bands there. But of course, as a K-pop star, he is under like contractual obligations not to date, and you know, can't get into scandals and all of this, but they can't deny an irresistible connection between them, and it's just chaos that ensues from there. I absolutely love this entire concept, and I'm so excited to see how this is gonna go. I think it's gonna be an adorable romance, and I love anything K-pop related, so I'm super excited for this one. Alright, this next book is another one that I'm planning to read very soon, and that is It All Comes Back to You by Farah Nazrishi. And this book seems like it's gonna be such a great enemies to lovers romance. Basically, this book follows our main characters Dean and Kieran, so they both have older siblings. So Kieran's older sister is Amira and Dean's older brother is Faisal. And so when Dean and Kieran are told by their older siblings that they are dating someone and that they intend to get married and that a wedding is going to ensue, Dean and Kieran quickly realize that the younger sibling of their older siblings' significant other is actually each other. And what no one else knows is that 3 years ago, Dean and Kieran used to date, and they were an absolutely happy couple until Dean ghosted her. Suddenly, out of the blue, and Kieran was left with zero answers. And so since then, they have become sort of enemies, and Kieran hates Dean's guts. And so the two of them begrudgingly decide to keep their previous relationship a secret from their friends and family. But of course, they are going to be in each other's midst during all of the wedding festivities. And of course, in enemies to lovers, romance ensues from there. I'm very curious to see how this one's going to go. And I think the idea of like them previously having dated and now, you know, being brought together is just so fun. And it seems like it's going to be a really cute romance. All right, the next book is one of my all-time favorites and a romance that I just adore. And that is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. And this is just a beautifully lyrically written book that is a YA fantasy, and it is set in a world that I've like never encountered something similar to before. So basically it follows our main character Laszlo Strange, who is a war orphan and a junior librarian as well. And in this fantasy world, he has always been obsessed with these stories of this lost city called Weep. And Weep isn't actually its name, but because of some magic many years ago, its name was stolen from people's memories, and so no one remembers it or where it is or anything like that. But much to Laszlo's delight, when a delegation from the lost city of Weep comes to his town asking for experts on various trades and things, Laszlo jumps at the opportunity to go see the lost city of Weep and see if it lives up to all the stories he's heard and, you know, conjured in his head. And this is where he meets the other main character, Sarai, who is a bit of a magical girl, and she, along with her siblings, have been stuck in the lost city of Weep, partly because their powers make them a bit of targets to the humans in their city. And I don't want to reveal too much there, but the way the romance sort of develops between Laszlo and Sarai is just so magical and just wondrous, because a lot of it happens in dreams, if that makes any sense at all. But if you're looking for an enchanting fantasy and an enchanting romance, this is definitely the one to be picking up. All right, the next book is another fantasy that I absolutely love, and that is Graceling by Kristen Cashore. And this one, again, has a wonderful, wonderful romance. I particularly love the main love interest, Poe. But basically, this book follows her main character, Katza, and she lives in this like fantasy country, and she is an assassin for the king. And in this world, there are people called Gracelings who have these abilities called graces, which are basically like any sort of magical ability or enhancement to any regular ability that people call a grace. And so Katza is graced with killing. She is like an incredible assassin, and hence why she works for the king. So she has bloodied her hands in many ways. But when a prince from a foreign country named Prince Poe sort of comes to her kingdom and is staying with the king, they end up interacting a lot, and she starts learning a lot of things that she didn't know about herself and also about her kingdom. And the two of them end up on a journey of some sorts as well. And it was just a fantastic book overall. Very, very intricate and interesting fantasy world as well. But I just love the way that the romance develops between Poe and Katza, because Katza is a very guarded girl and, you know, doesn't want to let people in, but Poe is the very charming guy who is also very sweet and kind and patient, which was just a dynamic that I absolutely loved seeing. All right, the next book is a historical fiction that I absolutely loved, and that is Lovely War by Julie Berry. So this is a story that is set partly in World War II and partly in World War I. So it is told by the goddess Aphrodite. She is basically the narrator of the story, and we are beginning the story with her sort of explaining her, you know, exploits in love to her husband Hephaestus during World War II, and she is describing some love stories from World War I, particularly the love stories of these four teens in World War I, and they are two different couples and how their lives sort of come together and are ripped apart in the arena of war. I absolutely love the way that the four main characters sort of come from very different walks of life and very different experiences, but you're seeing how love sort of brings them together, but also how war rips them apart. The book overall is really well written, and I just loved seeing how grand and beautiful these love stories were. I highly recommend recommend if you like historical fiction or any books set in the World Wars. This one was definitely just a beautiful, beautiful book to read. All right, the final book that I want to talk about today is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nagan. This is a book that I absolutely loved when I read it, and it is a beautiful, beautiful romance. A romance that kind of occurs in one of the most unlikely and sort of harrowing experiences that you could imagine. So basically in this fantasy world, there are 3 different castes, and the lowest caste is called the paper caste, and that is like the human caste. Then the middle and like higher ones are slightly more demonic. And so there's a tradition every year where 8 paper girls are taken to serve the demon king and, you know, live in his palace and, you know, fulfill his desires, that sort of thing. But this year there is an extra paper girl, the 9th one, who is our main character. So our main character, Lay, is of the paper caste, and she has like these uniquely sort of demonic eyes, which catches the interest of the people collecting these paper girls. And so she is shipped off with the other girls to the palace to serve the demon king. And amidst this, you know, these girls go through some very harrowing experiences. I would caution you to check out the content warnings for this one because it does involve sexual assault and rape. But what blossoms in this like horrible situation is a romance between the main character Lay and one of the other paper girls, and how they find love even in this unlikely situation. And also just like the personal growth of Lay as she is faced with these tragedies. I absolutely loved the tenderness of the romance as well, and how they sort of bond over their shared experiences, but also how the main character and the love interest are very different from each other in their mannerisms as well. And overall, it was just a really beautiful sapphic romance with an incredibly thought out fantasy world inspired by Asian mythology. All right, but those are all the books that I wanted to recommend today. I hope you guys found a cozy romance to curl up with this fall and into the beginning of winter. As always, I would love to hear from you guys what books you would recommend for this theme, whether they are books you've read, want to read, or ones you'd just like to recommend to me and the other people watching. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Jananie from the channel This Story Ain't Over, and I will see you in the next episode of #Epic Book Recs. Bye!